lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan, and with me today I have Daniel Moeller, and we are going to be talking about a mysterious new project that has taken place in the kayfabe group Weapon Ecch. Welcome, Daniel. Let's talk about the project, man. Can you tell us a little bit about what Weapon Ecch is?
Weapon Ecch is a celebration, I think, and also a study of Barry Windsor Smith's legendary run of Marvel Comics Presents, basically telling for the first time for anybody who picked up the book back then, the origin of Wolverine, where he came from, the Weapon Ecch project. It's one of those runs that just like, especially as a child picking it up, just sticks out in your mind as the seminal origin of Wolverine. There's nothing better. That's essentially what it is. Artists from all over the community just coming and contributing their own take and their own version.
Yeah, dude, and like, so what drew? I mean, obviously, you kind of just said it, like growing up as a kid, reading that, like, and your love for it. What else drew you to the project?
Well, not only just for nostalgia purposes, but Barry Windsor Smith is just a hero of mine. His work is amazing. So the prospect or opportunity of being able to come in and not only redo some of his pages, but to also have that opportunity to just study his work in depth. I've looked at other artists, and when I was young, I was drawing after Rob Liefeld and whatnot, but I think I always considered his work probably bigger in scope and harder to tackle. But it felt a little bit more safe and a little easier to come in with a bunch of other artists and everybody kind of bringing their own perspective into it as well. So that opportunity to really take a look at his work closely and to learn from it, to model after it, was something I was really excited about.
And how did you guys pick? How does the page breakdown go? Who picked what? Because Will Hoffneck is the guy that's kind of orchestrating this, right? It's going to come out through his 100% Comics. But how did that happen? How did you guys did you guys get to choose? Did you get assigned? Like, how did it all go out?
It was actually just, he had a spreadsheet of all the page numbers, and it was first come, first serve. So okay. You can imagine some of the coolest scenes got taken over right away, especially the covers. But that was fine because I ended up getting some scenes that I really enjoyed and really stuck out in my mind as a kid. And I got 2 pages from the scene where they released Wolverine into the wild, and they sicked a pack of wolves onto him. And so I was really excited about that because one of the pages I got in particular was after he had slaughtered the wolves and he's claws out, just screaming, into the wilderness, caked in blood. Like the image that a fan would always want to draw Wolverine, like I got to do it. So I was very happy with my pull.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, I mean, Weapon Ecch it's a perennial story. You know what I mean? Like when you think of Wolverine, like that is the first story that I think of. And it's really cool to see you guys kind of do your own takes on, so many different artists, so many different styles redoing the book. But is it simply just a retelling? Like literally, like you guys are just doing page for page, or are you putting your own like little spin on the story? What is is the narrative still the same, or has it changed at all?
Yeah, well, it started with here. Everybody get assigned a page, and Will's instructions were retell it however you want. If you want words, put words on there. If you don't want words, if you want to rewrite it, if you want to change the boxes around, change the panels around, and restructure it, do whatever you want. The page is yours. And Will's really great about that. He kind of gives you a template to work with, and then he just like sets you free. That's what makes him awesome as an editor. So I took the approach of just taking those pages, and I wanted to do a panel for panel study of Barry Windsor Smith's work, but also I wanted to try to find a way to incorporate what I learned with my own style as well. I wanted to try to push myself in directions that I hadn't gone before as an artist. And because of that, what I chose to do was just have no words at all. So it was basically my 2 pages are a wordless comic. And I think it works because the intensity of that particular scene when they release Wolverine out in the wild, like words aren't really necessary at that point. Like Barry Windsor Smith's like setup and his layouts tell the story completely. So I was actually pretty happy with that. The only other guidelines was keep it black and white, but if you want to add shading, duotone, whatever, you can do that. But to keep it black and white, because I think that's how it's going to be printed.
Oh, I'm kind of happy about that. To be,
I am too. I am actually really excited.
you know, like that's the first I've heard that. So, I mean, first of all, I'm sure it's cheaper to print in black and white, but I love black and white comics, and I think there's just not enough of them anymore. You know,
Absolutely.
so how like a lot of your stuff that I've read, right, is in color, but how are you playing with that with the shading? And is this the first time you've done strictly black and white?
No, I've done a little bit of black and white earlier in my work, but this one I kind of took the approach because I do like coloring, but I took the approach of just coloring with black and white shades.
Hmm.
So it looks a lot like my regular work, but at the same time, I don't know. You'll have to see for yourself.
Okay.
But I think it adds a nice kind of subtle quality to it because I wanted to match some of the moody shades that the original Barry Windsor Smith drawings had and the color work they had there. But of course, just keeping it in like gray tones at the same time. So it wasn't too much. I didn't go too wild and crazy with it, just enough to give it that mood.
Okay, cool. So how closely is everybody working together? Or since you guys like don't really need to do a specific narrative since the story's already there, right? It's not like, other projects you guys in the group have worked on. Are you guys like getting on Zoom calls, getting on Zoom chats, or are you guys all kind of just like doing your own thing? Like what's the cohesiveness in terms of like the creatives working together?
Yeah, we're all pretty much doing our own thing for the most part. We have some connection on a Facebook group just to kind of make sure we're all keeping on the same deadline and
Mhm.
whatnot. But we're pretty much working siloed together. And I actually think that's what's going to be the most interesting thing about it is seeing it all when together in one volume after we've
Mhm.
all just completely have done our own thing. We'll just let Barry Windsor Smith's original run be the thread, right? Like
Right.
that will be the thing that will tie it all together. But then after that, I mean, it's gonna have some of that excitement that like something like Image Grand Design has, where you don't know what you're gonna get from page to page, and that's what I'm looking forward to holding in my hands when it finally comes out.
Oh, dude, same here. I like we talked about before we hit that record button, dude, about the IGD. I mean, we got a call at the shop I work at if we had Image Grand Design. The fact that like people know about it and are calling a comic book store to try to get it, I think it's crazy to see, and it's definitely probably because of the kayfabe guys, throwing up that video. Um, but so two-part question before we get out of here is when can we expect Weapon X and how and where will it be released? Where will it be available?
Well, I think Will was planning on releasing it either mid or later this year, so possibly fall, was my understanding. And I think he's going to offer it through his forum, 100% Comics. So I think that's where people will be able to receive it and order copies of, from my understanding. So looking forward to having mine.
Yeah, dude, can't wait. All right, and then before we get out of here, last thoughts on Weapon X, and then also tell people where we can find you online, and I'm gonna drop those links down below as well.
Sure. Weapon X is going to be one of the greatest bootleg comics since Image Grand Design, maybe even better. It's going to be amazing. So pick it up. You can find me at danielmullerweb.com. If you go to Instagram or Facebook, look up Daniel Muller Web, you'll find me and you can find my work there.
All right, cool, dude. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk about Weapon X, and everybody listening, watching. Make sure you give Daniel a follow and get ready for our indie creator spotlight that we're going to be doing coming out in next month and a half, 2 months. All right, man. Thanks.